Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Gina Waldhorn. I am the COO of the Sports Innovation Lab. And we designed this Ask Me Anything series to create a new channel for you to access leaders and trailblazers during a time when, more than ever, taking risks and taking action has really become critical to the survival and the progression of the sports industry. If you're new to this Ask Me Anything series, this past Tuesday, we were with the Chief Global Strategy Officer for the ESL. And previously, we've been joined by leaders from the Boston Celtics, the LA Rams, the chairman of the Big East Conference, the commissioner of the A10 Conference. We've had Olympians, we've had NBA champions, as well as senior executives from companies like Cisco and Intel. And our ultimate goal is to really source and garner perspectives from across and outside the sports industry. And today we are thrilled to welcome two experts in really pushing the envelope on the fan experience in venue using technology, and specifically using mobile technology as well. We've got representatives from the technology side from Venutize and executives from the team side with the Los Angeles Football Club. But before I go ahead and kick off welcoming our guests, let me go ahead and tell you guys a little bit about how you can get involved because this is an AMA and because we really want to feel passionate about having a community. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share with you guys. If you enjoy the conversation that you hear today, please keep it going. Keep it going with us. Keep it going with our guests by joining our Slack community. We'll go ahead and post a direct link to join that Slack community in the chat window, but it is open to everyone to join. Please also note that we are going to, oh dear, sorry, slides went a little bit fast there. Oh boy. We want you guys asking questions. So how does that work? You're on mute right now. Please stay there. And you can ask windows by typing into the chat window. This session will be recorded, so you have to jump early, or you like what you hear and want to share it with your network. We'll go ahead and follow up with an email with a video recording of today's session. We also want to give you a quick update that many of you know we closed out our first ever Sports Innovation Lab hackathon last week. And if you're interested in finding out who won that hackathon, we will be announcing the top 5 finalists tomorrow at 3 p.m. So again, we'll post a link where you can register to join that meeting, learn a little bit about their pitches, what their products were, and who the winning teams are tomorrow at 3 p.m. So if you want to ask our guests today questions, you can do so. Just simply hover over the little chat icon within your Zoom. That's going to expand a window. You can select to post your question to everyone where all of the participants will see your question. Or if you'd rather send something directly, privately to the host, that's myself and Josh, you can select to do it there as well. And with that, I'd love to go ahead and introduce first the host for our conversation today, co-founder and president of Sports Innovation Lab, Josh Walker. Josh was formerly VP of Research at Forrester, and Josh stewarded the lab's progressive research practice, as well as introduced the world to the concept of the fluid fan. Josh leads the lab's client roster of more than 50 blue chip sports brands to understand how to connect to the fluid fan. And as of late, you've probably heard, seen, or listened to Josh as he's been featured in outlets from Sports Illustrated, Synopsis, Future Sport, as he's really become a preeminent voice in what the resurgence of sports will look like, helping to guide organizations on how to bring fans back and create breakthrough fan experiences. So Josh, thanks as always for hosting our discussion. And joining us today, first we have Craig Duncan, Chief Revenue Officer of Venutize. Craig has spent most of his 20-plus year career helping sports, hospitality, and entertainment organizations improve their business through the use of data, analytics, and mobile technology. Today, he is Chief Revenue Officer at Venutize, which is a mobile platform technology company that helps personalize the guest experience and enable e-commerce for smart venues. Prior to his current role, Duncan worked at MasterCard, where he ran global alliances for their data and analytics division. And he's worked closely with the sponsorship team to incorporate data-driven solutions to corporate partnerships. Craig has also worked 5 years at SAS Institute, where he successfully launched and led the sports analytics. He resides in Boston, Massachusetts, and he's a founding member of the Boston Venture Community Sports Group, which is dedicated to bringing thought leaders, investors, entrepreneurs from the sports and technology industries together. So we're thrilled and so grateful to have you with us today, Craig. And joining Craig and Josh in this discussion is Christian Lau, Chief Technology Officer for the Los Angeles Football Club and Banc of California Stadium. As Chief Technology Officer, Christian's focus is on defining the technical vision of the organization. His primary area of interest is the use of technology to enhance the guest experience, eliminate friction, and provide additive experiences for customers. From the beginning of his tenure, Christian has embraced the idea that his organization will try anything once. He has turned Banc of California Stadium into a test facility for partners, prospective partners, and technology companies to collaborate on the development of conceptual ideas that have proven to be a guiding force for next generation guest experiences in arenas, stadiums, and large venues worldwide. So these are truly experts in the space. Thank you both so much for joining us. And with that, Josh, I'll hand it over to you to kick off the conversation.
Awesome. Thank you, Gina. Craig, Christian, welcome. Thanks for joining. I think you two spoke to me probably back in February when we were putting together a report about designing breakthrough fan experiences in the venue. We talked about cashless, we talked about loyalty programs, access control, all these different technologies that we were trying to create urgency and a vision for the industry to sort of adopt and move forward with. What we're dealing with now wasn't even really on the radar unless you were a global company and had some presence in China or Asia, and you didn't really see it as clearly as we see it now in the States. So with that as sort of a backdrop where we last had a big conversation about how fans would move through a live entertainment experience to now, I'd love for you guys to just provide a little bit of context. What's changed in the last few months in terms of the way you're doing your day job, the way you're planning, the way you're operating your business? Christian, you want to start?
Yeah, happy to. And hello, everybody. So, we started off this year with a lot of new things that we're bringing into the venue. In fact, a lot of it, in a weird way, aligns with the whole post-pandemic strategy. We've been working on a couple of things over the last couple of years specific to biometric ticketing, which we've introduced. We had facial recognition ticketing this year, focusing heavily on contactless payments and those types of things, mobile ordering, et cetera. And so those are pretty much business as usual, but what we've learned now, obviously, as we're working to get back, to action is there's this whole new layer of technology and protocols around the post-pandemic experience that we've got to work through, from a guest experience perspective.
And you've been planning for that post-pandemic back to the stadium sort of experience. You've joined a group and you've been doing that local planning, but also it's now grown to be a national planning sort of organization. Can you give people visibility into what that planning and steering committee does?
Sure. So basically, we've been going at this probably 8-9 weeks now. And what we realized early, because, we started looking at elevated temperature monitoring, for example, or even looking at COVID-19 testing out of Israel. And what we learned quickly is, it's really not something that will be up to the venue, right, or an organization necessarily. These things need to roll up to the government level, at the state level, the city and county of Los Angeles. They need to focus heavily on their strategy around testing, around, the protocols for elevated temperatures, because, we being LAFC, we being any organization in sports and entertainment, have to rely on those protocols. And so, we started working with, here in LA specifically, we have the Los Angeles Venue Task Force, which is all the groups combined to work through, really a unified response, to getting back to business. And then we also have the Trusted Venue Consortium, which is, at the national level, working with other organizations, with, state governments and local governments around protocols for testing, for, elevated temperature sensing, those types of things. And so that's really been the key. And then, that's also expanded, internationally as well. So we've been, the plans that we've developed to get back to action have been informed by, name it, they've been involved in it kind of thing. And so we've worked with organizations around the world to develop the plan that we're putting forward with the state of California, for example. But, in the end, it just made a lot of sense to work with any and everybody and groups that we've never even talked to before.
And Craig, you guys have a broader view sometimes because it's not just, one city and one league, and you've now crossed, I think, 7 different professional sports leagues. What are you hearing from, say, the PGA or the NFL, and how has your business sort of changed in the last few months?
Sure. I mean, you're right. Each one is a bit different, right? You go across the different leagues, and even with the PGA Tour, who you mentioned, they're going to be, one of the first ones back here. And, being in a large outdoor venue, different challenges and opportunities for them to be the first back. If you look at, so that's where we've been spending our time, right? Most of our time is with our clients and the partners that are within their tech ecosystem that drive the fan experience. So the good news is for us, 5.5 years in business, we've been working on this all along. If you think of contactless payments, you think of digital ticketing, and you think of the integrations with the major systems to bring it all together. That's what we do. So we were built for this. What has changed over the last 3 months, to your question, is really now drilling down deeper. What do we actually have to do to make it completely touchless? And that's easier said than done, right? So if we look at the fan journey and every step of it, from thinking about going to an event, to buying a ticket, to ingress, egress, and everything in between, and certainly making payments, there's a lot of different technology pieces, as Christian knows well, that need to come together to truly make it touchless. Prior to this, cashless venues, it was something that a few were looking at here in the US in terms of professional sports leagues. That's now obviously accelerated. If you look at the different leagues and when they're coming back, we're listening for all the announcements from the government, from the league level, and then at the individual team level. You mentioned the NFL. We work closely with the Miami Dolphins and Hard Rock Stadium. They've been very public in terms of some of their planning, and just like LAFC, very forward thinking and trying different things. And I think, they just announced doing drive-through shows, right? With having cars drive into Hard Rock Stadium and be able to order from their vehicles. And so, we get involved in the planning with our clients. What are they thinking when they open back up? And then even with those plans, that's just when they open back up. And we all know it's going to be a phased approach. No fans at first, fans coming in after. And so the 2021 season planning really has to start now. If you want, depending on where you are in the cycle, right? We're chatting before we came on here, LAFC and Christian are in pretty good shape because they've implemented, set the foundation for a lot of these touchless technologies, if you will, well before the pandemic hit. So now it's just, configuring, tweaking a few things to make sure it's truly touchless along the way.
One of the themes that Christian touched on, and you mentioned it as well, is that the government's going to dictate a lot of this stuff. So I always think about you guys in your positions, both as a technology provider and a buyer of these solutions. Where do you think you're going to be held responsible for implementing something that the government's not going to do or dictate or mandate for you? Where do you feel like you have tremendous urgency, either to guide your clients, Craig, on your side, or Christian on your side, to be like, I can't trust that the government's going to make sure this happens, so in our venue, we're going to make sure we do X? Is there a very clear vision in your head what that one thing would be, Christian?
For us, I think, they will have protocols around, like I talked about, testing. And then you think about, elevated temperature sensing, those types of things. I think they will have a protocol around the medical situations that will come up when somebody does have a high temperature, for example. We're not going to just, take them out of line and say, have a nice day. Like, there's going to be a process to deal with that. And then they'll have general guidelines around cleanliness, those types of things. For us, I don't think the government's going to get into the weeds on that. And so we want to make sure that we take everything around sanitization and cleanliness to, a whole nother level, right? Because we want to make sure that people that come into Bank of California Stadium are comfortable and that, they have confidence that they're not going to get sick there. And so we want to make sure that we definitely, go above and beyond.
So I try to compare this to the airlines and TSA, right? Delta doesn't control TSA, but if a Delta passenger has a terrible experience with TSA, it's like Delta, is the worst, right? So there's something about the connection between LAFC and the idea that you may walk through one of these lines, the government may mandate that something happens, and then you're pulled out into an isolation room. Is that room staffed with your team? Are you guys going to feel like that's your responsibility to make sure that fan doesn't have a terrible experience if it was a false positive, or even if they need some medical attention?
Yeah, so we will have medical professionals on site, and so they will manage that process. But if you've ever been to an LAFC match, you'll know our guest experience is probably arguably the best on the planet. And I'm saying that because that's what we hear. It's not us. It's not conjecture. But we will definitely have a process in place to make sure that affected fans, are handled, are taken care of in an appropriate way, right?
Yeah.
And so that'll be key for us. And it's funny you mentioned Delta, because we actually work with Delta Airlines as a partner on cleaning protocols, because they are definitely the best in the business in the airline space.
I didn't do that on purpose, so I would take no credit for making that connection. Craig, in terms of where you guys fit, you like you mentioned, 5.5 years, you guys have been built for this. You're pre-game, you touch the ticketing, you touch the loyalty, your access control, your digital ticketing, you're the whole thing, you're cashless, you're paying for concessions. You can do most of the journey that a fan's going to go through. So in this period of time, when you're sitting with your team, and especially the product guys, where do you prioritize? Where do you feel like, it's like your job to get this one piece right?
Yeah. What we do is really connect the journey, right? So that's the biggest. So if ticketing, we're not providing the ticket, payment, we're not, right? So what we're doing is we're facilitating a lot of this, right? So if you think of, where we've been spending a lot of time recently is on the payment side. So really working even closer with a lot of our partners on the POS side of things, right? Point of sale, knowing that it's not going to be okay to go up and touch a kiosk with 100 people and there's no, the old way, right? And now there's, kiosks may still be used, but what does it mean for a receipt? The old way of a paper receipt, how can we digitize this? And, that just takes, while there's some examples where that's been brought to market in the past, I think now every one of our clients are going to need to go down that path, right? So it's then bringing all the one thing that we do specialize in is integrations, right? Over 175 integrations with third parties, and that's across that entire journey. So whether it's with the major ticketing companies out there, I mentioned POS already, but access control, Christian mentioned biometrics. We do think that's going to have a big play going forward. We were involved there pre-pandemic, and that is absolutely accelerated. And that can be in way of, we did, as you saw, Josh, a webinar on Pay with Face last week with a few of our partners. We think there's going to be a role on the access control, point of entry, whether that be at the main gates for general admission. Certainly, if you think of VIP entrances and hospitality suites, the old way of getting in, it's going to, we're already evolving, but it's definitely accelerated. So we're spending a lot of our time bringing those partners together for each one of our clients and trying to get through some of that testing and development now.
I know that we all work in sports, so it was pretty unlikely that we felt like we need to talk about, thermal cameras or temperature guns a few months ago. So is there anything else that you've put on your radar now that you didn't have on your radar before this pandemic that you've had to come up to speed pretty quickly on? Craig, you want to try that one first?
Yeah, I would say I definitely had to learn how cutting my own hair is right at the top of the list for that one. Yeah, that would be it. There's something, Christian, you know what I'm talking about. Look, he's got some special salad going on. It's going on 3 months. Something very unsettling about my 11 and 13-year-old daughters standing behind me giggling with scissors.
Yeah.
Not good. Not good at all. So
Right.
no, seriously, on the business front, I would say that it's been a big adjustment early on, just working in sports and hospitality for the last 20 years, really. It's a people business, as we all know here on the phone, right? You're getting out. A lot of the meetings we're having are at the venues themselves. Sometimes they're often taking place during the live event. We're doing testing, right? And all of that has changed. Our ability to really go through QA and test things is challenged. So there's an adjustment there. But just for me and my team that, travels so much, that was a big adjustment, early on that I just would have never expected.
It's not a small thing. Is there anything that you've learned through this process other than like using Zoom and WebEx and all these different video conferences? Have you found a trick?
Just what I've learned. I don't think I have a trick other than communication. It can be a beautiful thing, right? And not traveling and reaching out and doing more video conferences and people without. Not only am I not traveling, but the other, the people that I am meeting with on the other side of it, they have more time to do video chats. So you're developing different types of relationships and communications that way. So I've come to embrace and enjoy that in many ways. And I think it's, yes, I'm certainly looking forward to getting back into, face-to-face meetings and live events, but that has been an adjustment, but also kind of a fun thing to learn along the way.
Christian, I'll re-ask the question and I'll throw in a compliment too, because probably most of the people on this call don't know that, like, whenever we do research on, the venue and who's doing innovative things, they mention you like first. You're the first name, right? They're like, you got to talk to Christian. Have you ever talked to Christian? Christian's the guy you need to talk to. So you're always kind of at the front end of like innovation when you have time to plan and you have time to think about things. And even when you're hearing different vendor pitches, what's come at you or what have you seen or put on your radar that like you really were not thinking about?
There's a couple things. One would be crowd intelligence, which, was always one of those things. We obviously needed it. And so we have security systems, we have facial recognition, cameras for our security team. But then when you start thinking through crowd intelligence kind of, as a concept, we realized quickly in this new post-pandemic era that we're going to have the ability to measure, our audience. And when you think through all the work we're doing with Legends, for example, who's our concessionaire, we're reworking and reimagining our concession stands and how those will operate. And then when you think through the concourse and the club spaces and how you're going to have the ability to do some level of physical distance, crowd intelligence becomes a big thing. So we brought on Armored Things as a partner, which we had been talking to prior to the pandemic. So that was already kind of in the works, but we're bringing them on, and now we're focusing heavily with a couple of partners on crowd intelligence and looking to build what we'll call the next generation of AI-enabled facial recognition type systems for use in our types of venues, right? So stadiums, arenas, other large venues like convention centers, things like that.
So I've been very close to Julie and Charles at Armored Things since the beginning of the company and love what they're able to model and visualize. When you guys are using their software, are you able to use it with historical data so that you can model the future? Or is it one of those things where you need to implement it before you can start doing some predictive analytics on where people will gather and things of that nature?
Yeah, so they do have the ability to look at predictive analytics based on past events. Because it's a new rollout that we literally are just starting it now. We won't have that opportunity. But once we get in a couple of events, we'll be able to start to understand exactly what the makeup of different crowd situations might look like.
And how will you guys, this is a question that's coming in now. It's like, as visionaries with technology experience, how do you prioritize security and privacy initiatives when you're using mobile apps to gather information from your fans? So I know that, this is top of mind for you guys, Craig, at Venutize, anonymizing that data, but also providing your partners with analytics and insights into those consumers. Can you talk a little bit about how you can gather intelligence from those mobile devices and provide the partners with visibility, but do it in a way that protects privacy?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything, the data that we handle is essentially our customers' data, right? So they have access to that. What we're doing is, anonymizing and aggregating across our client base and sharing insights that way that we think is valuable for our clients. So a big part of that is right now is around communications and content, right? There's no fans in the stadiums. There's no live events happening for the most part. So how can you use mobile technology to communicate, keep them informed, keep your fan base informed, and also keep them entertained with content? And we are seeing quite a spike in those areas. So then as we get back to live events, the data that we can see around certainly commerce, right? How are those payments taking place? The speed of transaction, that's really been fascinating. My background in data and analytics, I love seeing the data around the speed in transaction as you move from the old school to the new school way, everything from cash all the way up to biometrics payments. The difference is tremendous. We have I'm happy to share post this call some of the data there if people are interested. But so that's where anything we can do to share that data across our client base and show the gains that are happening, whether it be in payments or access control and reducing the time to entry. I think that those are all going to they've been valuable leading up to this, and I think it's going to become more valuable going forward. So that's where some of the downtime, if you will, on getting development completed for live events, we have reprioritized more work around data and analytics for that very reason. And
Christian, back to the crowd intelligence piece, are you using that, the question is, are you using that just for planning and predictive modeling, or will you be using it also to alert fans if there's a potential threat or risk?
Yeah, so initially, we're just trying to understand the technology and getting it into the security stack, for the venue. Ultimately, we will have some level of, capability to alert, all of our guests in the building if there is a situation. But we have to think through that a little bit because you don't want to be alarmist. Mm-hmm. And I think, with proper planning and some of the things that we've worked through, we're hopeful that we won't run into these types of situations.
Yeah. And we've advised most of our clients that there's a situation where you want to make sure that whatever comms team you have associated with providing customers and fans with alerts or information when they come back to the venue, that they handle that in a very responsible way and don't put the marketing team on it, but that there's more of a crisis comms or at least a more informative PR function that's around that.
Hey, Christian, a quick question for you. Are you expecting a spike on the venue side in terms of, the communications around that, right? Everything, Josh, things you're just hitting on there, but in the past, right? All right, I get a message. You guys do a great job on messaging all the way leading up to the game, to the match, to, all right, match is ending, go here for a post-game tailgate, or head to, your ride share area and messaging. But now that should become a lot more important to the fan base. I'm curious, are you expecting a spike there?
Yeah, we think so. We've been very cautious in how we communicate, with our customers. And so going back to the question you asked a minute ago, when it comes to any of our security systems, it's all anonymous data, right? Yeah. We're not tracking our customers in a way that we know who they are. It's really just kind of like more of a herd mentality and understanding who's in the building, but it's all anonymous. And we really only market to people when they've opted into something. And so the notifications, we're really keen to make sure that anytime we touch the customer, through a notification, that it's impactful and it's meaningful. So we have to think through, how you have your normal course of business, like, Lyft, for example, or a special offer versus, things around protocol and COVID-19, post-pandemic type messaging. So we are working through that, but there's going to be a fine line, I think.
Yeah, that.
It's not a small issue or question, because all of us know that the networking technology within a venue has the ability to figure out which phones are in the area, and if they need to, message to those phones. So you can almost override and deliver those messages if you need to. There's been a lot of conversation on these AMAs around mandating that customers have these apps installed before they go to the venue. Do you imagine that that's something a lot of your customers are going to have to do now, Craig? That there's more of it's not hey, get our loyalty points and download our app. It's like, you can't come in here unless you have this thing.
I think so. I do. I think we're going to go in that direction where it is mandated to get in. And, mobile ticketing was pushing towards that way, but you can certainly get in with a ticketing app as well. But the benefit of having a team, venue, or league app that we're often involved in is you get some of these other things, right? You're able to personalize the messages and the content. But now back to the safety and security side of it, the ability to get key messages out when you need to, and provide those updates. And look, as we're talking about real-time intelligence, some of these updates are going to have to happen that quickly. So you better have a one-to-one means of communication that's reliable. So I do think it could very well go down that path. So it will be interesting to see.
Christian, is that a consideration for you guys? Mandate the team apps download before people will return?
I wouldn't say mandate. The majority of our fans are really customers that come to the building, already have the app. We've been digital tickets with Ticketmaster, since 2019. And the vast majority of folks are using the app to get into the building. And so, I think it would be a nice suggestion to have the app, but again, I think most people have it already, right? It comes down to the guest experience, and you don't want to necessarily mandate certain things, but we'll have to think through that a little bit.
Yeah, and it may not, to your point, it may not be you guys that have to mandate it. It may be the government saying, look, we need a opt-in channel to communicate with you guys, and this is the approved channel for doing that. So we'll see, but it's definitely come up a bunch of times. Okay, questions are now coming in pretty hot and heavy, so let me switch over and we'll start playing the speed round ADD style questions that just bounce all over the place. So buckle up. Okay, so outside of the post-pandemic security benefits, what value do you guys see in facial recognition besides access control?
I'll take that one initially. So, I mentioned before, facial recognition ticketing is alive and well at Banc of California Stadium. We've had it for a couple of games this year, the two that we had, and it's a very promising platform. We're real excited about it. And then, we plan to expand that at concessions as well. So we're working with Clear, who's our partner on that, and then a point of sale company to hopefully include, their facial recognition technology on the point of sale hardware, because we are also planning to do biometric age verification and payment as well. And before that was going to be, your thumbprint and a retina scan, but I think we want to move that to face sooner than later. But that's something that we've been planning since 2018, right? For example. But no, facial recognition will continue to be will play a bigger role, I think, in access control and concessions, purchasing in general. It's funny because, before when we introduced it, a lot of people thought we were kind of crazy from a timing standpoint, right? Just because facial recognition, there's a lot of concern around privacy and these types of things, which again, we don't capture any data from that. But now you have a lot of teams, a lot of venues that are really interested in, facial recognition ticketing as well as buying food, beverages, and merchandise, things like that.
And Craig, you answered this earlier with your, pay with your face content that you guys just put out there.
Yeah.
Is there anything you have to add to
Yeah,
that?
I think Christian hit on most of the ones, and I touched on a few earlier. The only one I'd add to that is I do think biometrics and facial rec in particular will play a key role on the back of house, the employee side. Right? So if you think of, the fans, they're going to want to know the employees are healthy and how they enter into the venue, all of that plays into it. So I've learned, quite a bit. Christian hit on it too, the importance, as we learn that it's actually opt-in. There's a lot of good side to facial recognition and biometrics, especially if it's opt-in and the data is controlled. So communicating that trust with the fan base will be extremely important.
Yeah. So Craig from Apple asks, how prevalent will mobile ordering be when fans are back in the venues, and how will this improve the overall fan experience? You guys can Rochambeau, or you can just be.
Christian, go ahead on that.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic question, Craig Ross from Apple. So,
I figured it was a layup for you, but I didn't want to bias the answer.
All good, man. So we started mobile order last year. We started using it with the Apple Business Chat, and really well received. We have added mobile ordering in the LAFC app, right, with Venutize as well. And we were going to expand it this year to 8 locations, and now the plan is we're actually planning to put mobile ordering at all of our concession stands because it is going to be prevalent. And so, we're, as I mentioned before, we're starting to reimagine concession stands. And so you're going to definitely see a priority being given to mobile ordering because that's what our customers want. And then when you think through the abilities or how to mobile order, so again, we'll have multiple channels, right? You'll have the LAFC app to do it. We're looking at an out-of-app experience that you just basically tap an NFC chip or a QR code. We'll still use Apple Business Chat, and we're working with another partner to have an in-app experience for mobile ordering from them as well. So, I think mobile ordering, as well as contactless payment, which, Apple Pay is already a huge part of our business, and will continue to become more prevalent over time, just because behavior's changing with the consumer. We always looked at going cashless, and now we're realizing that the market's taking care of that, right? There was a metric I saw recently where ATM usage is down like 66% across the board around the US. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah.
Craig, you want to touch on this, or can we move on?
Oh, go ahead, move on.
Okay, because I think the other question is actually probably more relevant for you, which is Chris asks, how can all of these issues be delivered without a, quote, centralized system? And you mentioned 175 integrations that Venutize has. You guys are constantly looking at third parties to bring together so that you can manage all of that within one ecosystem. Christian's probably dropped like 20 different vendor names in this conversation already. Who's going to bring it all together? And is it necessary to have one centralized system that does all of this? And I think all of this being the fan experience, the fan journey.
The touchless journey. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think, look, there's not going to be one company or technology that does it all, right? I've said a couple of times just in this call already that it is, a lot of our time, certainly with our clients, but all the partners that are coming together to do this. So concessionaires, POS, safety and security. I mean, it's across the board. So the answer is there's not going to be one. I think there's going to be those that, yes, I'm biased in this way because of our approach on an open platform and integrations, but I do think the ecosystem is going to enlarge out of this and not shrink, right? There's new technologies, new use cases that have come to light because of the pandemic that require new players to market. New companies will come out of this, as you know, that I know that Josh, you and the team at SIL are looking at all the time, right? Companies will come out of this that will play a role in keeping us safe and secure and touchless going forward. So I think it's going to continue to be partnerships along the way here to make this work. And when we talk about truly touchless, that's what we're looking at, that plan, right? You've seen our touchless fan journey that we've come out with, that kind of is a visual. But through that, as we look at it, each one of those steps, you can say, all right, we got to talk to these 4 partners now to make this come to life.
Yeah. And Christian, how do you handle it? I mean, how do you handle it as a buyer, as an integrator, system integrator, thinking about all these things that have to work together to make sure that the fans feel like they're dealing with one party?
You know, it's actually easier than you think, because when you look at, I mean, there's certain technologies, especially like in the mobile app, and I will tell you with Venutize and the integrations that they have, you know, pre-existing, and some of the stuff we brought to the table, they've done a really good job of it. And so the customer has no idea. It's pretty effortless, you know, from their perspective. But when you think through some of the other things in Venue, for example, like I said, contactless payment is a key feature for us. We're also working with another partner, soon to be partner, around the idea that you can open a tab at concessions or a club space and then just buy what you want throughout your journey for the evening, and then you close out at the end of the night, right? And this is all mobile. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, we'll have that set up in a way so the customer has no idea that they have to go to a different experience, right? And so when it comes to the digital realm, it's easy to manage that, if that makes sense.
It does. It still sounds pretty daunting. So the other thing that I wanted to do as we're sort of coming toward the end of the hour is we've spent a lot of time here talking about what's going to happen in the venue, how it's going to change, what we think will be temporary versus permanent. Those are sort of all embedded in our answers. What are we doing when we think about the fans that aren't going to be in the venue? If you follow most of the predictions, there's going to be a period of time where we're playing in empty stadiums. What role do you guys feel like technology plays in bringing that in-venue experience outside to the fans that wish they could be there?
I'll go first on that one. This has also been in the works well before the pandemic, which is right, bringing the engagement to your living room or wherever you're engaging with live entertainment. I think content, but in-game, just think of in-game wagering and the things that you're seeing coming out, right? With all this downtime, you're seeing, you know, the DraftKings and FanDuels come out, and they're expecting a huge spike.
So you want the consumer, Craig, to think, I'm not going to the venue, but I should open my Venue app because there's going to be a unique experience here that I normally wouldn't get.
Absolutely. And I think,
how would they know that that's possible?
Say that again?
How would they know that that's possible? Like, that's not the first thing I'm sure that goes through their head, that the Venue app, the thing that they were going to use to get into the stadium, do all these cool things. Yeah, but in the case of,
I mean, in the case of, just stick with Christian, right? LAFC, it's not it's a team and venue. I mean, most of the clients we work with, right? It's all in one. So your content, when you're not at the venue or leading up to it, or even, you know, post game, and then the utility when you're at the venue. So, but now what I'm talking about is whether it's a match day or not, right? You're in there, and there's content that's engaging, whether it's trivia contests, but we all know when the live sports comes back, there is going to be mad interest out there and a big push. We already saw the push coming with sports wagering, and I think the ability for fans to participate via, you know, and in some cases, whether, you know, they're wagering against other fans in the team app, or, you know, there's integration with some of the major wagering apps out there. I think that is going to be a big push, because you're right. Not everyone's going to come back right out of the gate. Even when fans are welcome back, people are going to come back in different phases, but it's going to be up to at the team level to keep them engaged.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at your data, VPO's data, Rover's data, all of our clients that kind of have access to the fan data in the venue and the immediate experience, you've all shared very clear metrics that show that the fans are using that stuff before and after as much as they're using it during. So there seems to be a behavior that's already built in that you could potentially market to them that you have an at-home experience during the pandemic. And that would seem very logical to them, that would be a place they would meet with other fans, do these types of activities.
Yeah.
Christian, you guys doing anything special whether it's mobile or OTT wise or anything with broadcast to make sure that you're changing the experience for the people that can't make it to the venue?
Yeah, so we're actually working on a few things right now. One of them is the concept that we would have within our app a platform where all of our fans can communicate with each other, right? We want it to be cool though, but we're looking at the idea that there would be a mechanism in app that would allow them to cheer, where they would actually hear the audio in the stadium if it was empty. And then we're also working on a really cool idea around audience augmentation in an empty stadium, which kind of came out of the idea, Dortmund had cardboard cutouts. Mm-hmm. And we're actually working with a CGI firm right now on the idea that we would have a full stadium. Mm-hmm. And the portal, we would set up a portal where all of our fans would be able to upload their photo. And then we would use the Snapchat Bitmoji SDK, and then we would place them in that experience. So that could be interesting. And then, we're working on an entire in-home, and this is for the future too. This is not just now, like we're looking 3 years down the road, but there's an in-home experience with a new partner that's coming on very soon that's in the home delivery space, where we would have party packs from LAFC restaurant partners, for example, and then exclusive merchandise that people could buy on event days, here in Los Angeles, and it would be delivered to their house, that kind of thing. So
I feel like you might have been bugging our hackathon. That all that stuff was like, the teams that were on our hackathon got so jazzed up by those cardboard cutouts. They're like, this concept could be taken in a million different directions. And then the home delivery concept also got taken into a whole bunch of different really cool ideas. So that's really cool. So is that something that you guys could do in the near term, or are those things like you're planning for, 6 to 12 months out?
Yeah, no, we're actually in the process of working through the logistics of both.
Okay, very
in fact,
cool.
the audience augmentation, we're hoping to get something done really soon. It's literally a bunch of dudes from Hollywood just down the street, and they're like, sure. We have an ability to do something. So that's going to be exciting. And then the home delivery stuff, we're working through the T's and C's of a contract. But yeah, no, there's nothing but upside there, and we know our fans would dig it. And when you look at the engagement in our app, for example, not even playing matches, the number of unique users that we're getting per week is insane. And it has everything to do with, we have trivia nights, for example. And then we're also working with another partner. They have a product that basically allows for a nightclub scene. So just imagine Coachella. So LAFC, we have a guest DJ once a week, and they take over our Instagram channel. But now we have these guys that have a really cool studio here in LA, and we can overlay, basically an augmented reality layer. And so you literally have like 5,000 people in a nightclub, even though there's nobody there, and it's the DJ, right? So I can't visualize that, but just imagine.
No, I can visualize it. It's the same. Yeah. It's the same thing that we talk to our clients about all the time with, the Fortnite virtual events and concerts, where it's just like there's a social engagement that's happening, but it's happening at a remote digital experience. And it's crazy how much of an advantage you guys have, because you're in the backyard of Hollywood and you're taking full advantage of it. So kudos for that. Poor Craig's stuck in the North Shore in Boston. He's got no creative types to hang out with. Just a bunch of cold water to swim in, I think. Craig, we're gonna wrap up. So, is there anything that you guys have been working on, or anything that you want to touch on that's kind of come out of this period of time that we didn't get from a question, or that I didn't get to ask you?
I think just really the acceleration, what you're going to see when we go back, the different types of commerce options that are already available throughout the entire journey. And that's everything from, we talked a lot about, purchasing a ticket and food and beverage, but that goes all the way to merchandise and things we're doing in terms of pickup at lockers, at venues. So I think that's going to be, and we of course pay with biometrics, right? So you're not even taking your phone out of your pocket. So I think those are going to be some cool things to see in the very near future.
And we're going to be paying closer attention to PGA because that's really where you guys feel like we'll see some of the first stuff you guys are putting out there.
Yeah, they're out in front of it. They're going to be coming out first, and a lot of good things to see there.
Okay. Christian, anything else that I didn't ask and that you want to touch on before we wrap up?
I don't think so. I will. The only thing I'll leave everybody with is it's interesting, at least in my head, a lot of the stuff we've been working on for a while, people thought, it was a lot of blue ocean, like pie in the sky kind of things, like anything around artificial intelligence, for example, like we're working on AI retail environments, things like that, facial recognition, ticketing. I will tell you, it seems like those things that were kind of like esoteric have become front and center. And I think the innovation that you're going to start seeing in arenas and stadiums came about because of this pandemic. So if there had to be a silver lining, I would say that's probably it. I feel like, and it's not just for our industry either. I think you look at retail and where markets are heading in general, it's a totally new day from a technology standpoint.
Yeah, well, I mean, our CEO, Angela, is returning from maternity leave just as this is all sort of hitting its full sort of stride here. And it's one of those things where it's like it's created that urgency for the things that we've been throwing around as buzzwords for a while. A lot of us who have seen virtual reality come and go because the cost of the headsets or augmented realities, and because it's a nice to have, are now looking at all of these things and saying, wow, there was a real purpose for this because it helped advance the fan experience in different ways and could have provided us with a backstop had a lot of this stuff been in place. You two have been awesome. I really appreciate you taking time with us here today. Thank you guys for asking questions. If you want to continue the conversation, as Gina mentioned earlier, these guys are going to be available on Slack. I promise I'll wrangle them in there. But Gina, do you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, I mean, couldn't agree more on the pushing for innovation. So we've got a lot of pretty amazing innovative ideas that came out of the hackathon. If you want to see what those are, join us tomorrow. We'll be announcing the 5 finalists and telling you a bit about those ideas tomorrow at 3 p.m. And then join us next week on Tuesday. We welcome Jon Coombs, CEO and founder of Rover. We're going to focus on the changing landscape of sports media, media consumption, and especially how we do that on the go. So thank you, as always. Thanks to our guest, Josh. Thanks for hosting us. And we'll see everybody hopefully tomorrow or next week. Stay safe,
All right,
everyone.
guys. Stay safe. Thanks, guys.